Hey Blair, we have a new distillery in town.
We do.
I'm so excited. It would have been open already if it wasn't for this stupid coronavirus.
Well, the distillery is open, but they were also going to open a bar.
Yeah.
That didn't happen yet.
Yeah, but we're very happy that they took the time out to meet with us. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Welcome to If This Bar Could Talk, a podcast about bartenders and the stories they have to tell, as well as the storied history of cocktails, spirits, and bars. I'm Blair Beavers, and here's your host, Leanne Sims.
So welcome to the show, Joe and Nikhil, the founders of Echo Spirits Distilling Company, and Bar Manager Derek Reno, who you may remember from previous podcasts. He told us about the sex story, if you want to go back in time and re-listen to that. But
I guess it got brought up again.
Guys, thanks for doing our podcast.
Welcome.
I know you're super busy.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you guys for having us.
So I have a lot of questions for you tonight. We have so much to talk about, but I just want to start with your corporate philosophy. So based on what I read about you, you want to take us back to a time when personal relationships with your customers were the norm. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
So just kind of as we went about our daily lives, I worked in IT. Nikhil's an engineer. We kind of noticed, for being tech geeks like that, we kind of both noticed that everything was becoming hands off. You go to the checkout lane now and you do your own checkout. You're not interacting with a person. Sometimes there's merits to that. And you go to the big box hardware store and you go to the big box, all purpose, Target or Walmart or something like that. And something's getting lost. We're missing out on the relationships, on the people. And knowing who the person is who owns the business that you're going to. Mm-hmm. There used to be a time when you went to the small hardware store and you knew the guy who owned it, and you went to a baker, mm-hmm. and a butcher, mm-hmm. Separate businesses, not the supermarket. And not that there's not merits in some of those big things all being in the same place, but at the same time, we seem to be going with big chains and losing connections to people, and a lot of it is also to money coming back into your own economy.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's smart for many reasons, for all the reasons that you just mentioned, but also everybody loves to be known by mm-hmm. people. Like everybody loves to, like, when you walk into a bar, you're like the Norm, mm-hmm. or Leanne, Blair. Everybody loves that. So to go into a distillery and these people, because that's just going to make people want to come back. I just think that's a very smart mm-hmm. approach. And I want to quote something from your website. You said, "The people of Central Ohio are creative, intelligent, and energetic. We are nothing if not an echo of our community, and we strive to give back and improve that which surrounds us." I would add to that the people of Columbus are also charitable and caring, mm-hmm. and you also echo that. And you showed that in your stay-at-home cocktail club that you did mm-hmm. during the COVID shutdown, which I don't know if you realize. I don't know if you realize the impact that had, like the effect that had, getting those bartenders who are out of work and probably mm-hmm. scared shitless mm-hmm. back into their element. Did you think about that at all, or what made you want to do that?
Kind of didn't really dawn on us till probably after, the first week we were in there, and we had Christina in there. And to her, it especially been a little while since she'd been behind the stick anyway. But she just said it was so much fun to just get back there and do mm-hmm. it again. And, Jesse echoed it the same thing the following week. And we just kept hearing that. Mm-hmm. And no, I don't think it was something we anticipated. It was something to, get those people out and active and doing their thing again, and maybe, create something for the community that they could, watch at home along with us and kind of enjoy the process. But I think that secondary benefit of having all those bartenders, have something fun to do mm-hmm. for once, where maybe they weren't stressed about everything that was going on just for a couple days.
And then that also gave your bar manager, Derek Reno, something to do, right?
Mm-hmm. It did. It honestly, yeah, I would second that sentiment and go further and say, I've said it before. I think it's the most proud thing that I've ever done in the facility of being a bartender. The second week, I believe, with Jesse, we were able to share their Venmos and get a little bit of love from home. We just thought it'd be a small amount, and people everyone responded. Like they all left like they left on a Friday or Saturday night from a bar shift typically, and that in addition to just being creatively rewarded and getting to come out and connect with everyone, which I was so caught up with what they're doing for us and the benefit we're getting from them being there and just making sure it was fun and facilitated well and in a good time that I didn't even think about the fact that they would also get a reward from it. And I would say that everyone seemed to have left pretty happy.
So let's talk about how did Echo Spirits come about?
Yeah, me and Joe have known each other since high school. We went to college at separate places. I went to Cincinnati. Joe went to OSU, and basically, whenever we came back, whenever we would go out drinking after, we got used to drinking good beer, and we started to say, hey, how do we get good beer on the regular and still save some money because we're just out of college and we didn't even have jobs, or so we decided to start home brewing. And we were home brewing. Joe started actually a little before I did, and then when I got back from Cincinnati, he was in the thick of it, and I was like, this was so much fun. Let's try doing this, get some good beer out of it, and save some money too. And as we went along, as home brewers, a lot of home brewers are either looking at distilling or opening their own bar. So we kind of went through both phases a little bit. We did a little bit of experimenting with distilling, but we're like, we want to open up a brewery and a bar. So we looked into that, and at that point we had 7 breweries.
Way too many.
Yeah, way too many breweries, right? There's no way there could be more
There's
than
no
that.
way.
So we're like, let's look at the next thing.
There are never too many.
We know that now.
We know that now.
So we know that now.
I agree.
But
There are never too many breweries.
no, there's definitely never. I mean, for us, we would have thought that too, but it just didn't seem like it was going to take off like
No, I
crazy.
know what you mean. Yeah.
Man, it's like what we have 45 now here in Columbus. Or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's like pizza places. It's
Yeah.
like there can't be one more pizza place in town, but then one opens and it's busy. It's like
Tacos.
Yeah, tacos.
I
You
like
just
that.
can't.
Tacos.
There's some
Tacos
things
are the new
you
breweries.
just can't have too many of.
That's right.
But I'm
True.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's yeah. So basically, we experimented a little bit distilling. We looked at what the next big wave besides after beer would be, and like on the West Coast, it was distilling. It was a lot of craft distilleries. They came out right after the craft brewing, so it was like the next wave of stuff in the same field basically.
And what year was this?
This is probably 2014 at this point.
Okay.
So still quite a long time ago. We're slow at things.
But yeah, so we both
They must
decided
have
we
made
wanted to-
quite a bit during that era, though. Obviously, I didn't know them, but it was like every month or so they come in with a new bottle of some distilled spirit or something that they've made in the past, and we get to taste them.
Found this in
they
the
were good
basement.
then, too.
Let's
check it out.
Oh yeah, I
That's
mean
right.
we were both single at the time, and we were both just out of college and kind of had jobs, and we didn't have anything else to do, bachelor, so we made a lot of different things. We tried basically every major type, all different wines. We did a lot of mead,
Beer, wine, mead, sake,
sake, yeah,
all sorts of different stuff. The
Interesting.
fermentation sciences.
yeah, exactly.
So how did you learn how to distill?
Illegally.
By attempting to not blow ourselves up in my garage.
So Nikhil, you mentioned you're an engineer, and then what did Joe? What's your background?
I was in IT.
Okay. So then you guys just decided you were gonna distill your own spirits, and so how did you learn? You literally just like.
There was a lot of reading. I mean, luckily we had the home brewing background, and I think a lot of people, if you go on the internet and kind of research, a lot of people try to make that jump from doing nothing to distilling, and they're missing that one of the most impactful things to the flavor of your final product is the fermentation. That whole first part of it, it's kind of important. So luckily we had a pretty good background in all of that. And for a home brewer to step into distilling, it's not that much, work. You're kind of used to figuring stuff out on your own a little bit. Just a lot of reading on the internet, reading as many books as we could get our hands on, going on distillery tours and asking questions and trying to not sound sneaky because we thought we were going to get caught. You're trying to, if you were to, do this on a small scale, how much yeast would you maybe use? That kind of thing.
But did you find that now that you're a distiller, the distillers are kind of a brotherhood that would have shared that information with you?
Absolutely, there
Yeah.
is. The community around here has been great. Obviously we made our Rye Whiskey, which I think we'll get into later. We made that over at Middle West because we know the guys. I went over to Watershed a couple weeks ago because our reverse osmosis machine was broken. I was like, "Hey, Greg, I need like 20 gallons of water. Can I have some water?" The first day we turned our still on, Tony from Noble Cut, he took the day off and came over to distill with us because his equipment is so similar, just to hang out, walk us through the process. And then the first day we did our mash, he took the day off and he brought one of his employees over to help. And they were, hauling
That's awesome.
grain and dumping bags in with us. They're not just standing there watching and saying, doing this, they're getting in there. That's the kind of community it is.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Chad from 451's been over a bunch of times, helped us
we
with a
love
bunch
him
of
so
things.
much.
Yeah, we're actually using his first barrel to age one of our experimental products. So we like a lot of collaboration, and then everybody's been super nice. Yeah, it's been
So cool.
like a brotherhood basically. Yeah.
So your first product was your rum, which was delicious. So we were doing a cocktail class. We were going down to my hometown to visit my sister. We were going to do a Zoom cocktail class. We were going to do a Hemingway cocktail. So we decided to stop, and that's when we came in and bought the bottle of rum. And it's an unaged rum, and it is so good. I was really blown away. It's sweet, it's smooth, and it has just a little bit of that rum funk that you expect.
In a
but
good
it
way.
is
That
Yeah.
was
In a good
spot
way,
on.
yeah.
so why
good.
rum instead of like vodka?
I think when we were kind of looking out to figure out what we wanted to make, I think at the time we didn't have the passion for rum that we do now. A lot of it was, to be honest, kind of a business decision. You looked at the landscape of the other local distilleries around town, and Ohio is a grain-based, agricultural, area. What's everybody making? Vodka, gin, wheat whiskey, things like that, things based on grain. We said nobody's making rum. That's the, we were kind of looking, what's the biggest category out there that nobody in Central Ohio is touching? And at the time, because when we started this, Watershed and Middle West were the only two around. 451 wasn't around, didn't have their rum. High Bank didn't have their rum. We kind of just looked out and said that's the big one that we should go for. And in the process of doing the research and meeting up with people like Chad White from the Ohio Rum Society and those guys, just finding the passion that people had for rum and kind of getting into it ourselves and discovering there's so much out there that it wasn't just that white spirit that we need to make a business decision on, that this is actually something really cool that we're passionate about.
Yeah, I like that. And so I read on your website, I did not know this, you also make Jennifer.
Not yet. It's coming.
So you're
It
going
will
to
be
make
coming
Jennifer.
this fall. So what we've been working on.
they're
So
gonna
that's
love-
kind of
they'll love
our
this.
Yeah, I think you'll love this. So Geneva, it's kind of our passion.
Geneva.
We call it Geneva. I think you can pronounce it either way. It comes from an area in Europe where there's about a dozen different languages and a dozen different ways to pronounce things. So
Okay.
we go with Geneva. I don't
Okay.
think
Yeah,
any way is
I
wrong.
looked it up. You can find there are four different little things on there that pronounce it. There's even one where the J is silent, so they're all correct.
Oh yeah,
G.
yeah.
Yeah.
We've been corrected a couple times. I'm like, I don't
So
think
I'm
that's
like,
right.
hold on, let me send you this article. But Geneva, that was kind of a passion product of ours. Nikhil and I were over in Europe, going to Oktoberfest and then all of these subsequent activities around Western Europe. In 2013, at the time, my cousin was stationed in the Air Force over there. We stopped by his place, and we were going to Ghent in Belgium the next day, and he said, well, hey, you should go. There's this, it's kind of gin, but it's kind of not gin. There's this bar, and the guy who owns the place has his face painted over the wall, but there's no sign. You just have to know. You wander down this alley, and you wander in. We're like, this is too crazy to be true. Let's go check it out. So
You can't not do that.
You can't not do that. We're like, we have to figure this out. And what is this thing, right? So we go in there, drink the spirits that they have there, all sorts of. They do a lot of like blended with juices, or they've got cactus and tiramisu and all these different flavors, pine and all these interesting things to try. So after you try a few half dozen of those, we stumble out the door and we get back to America, a couple weeks later, and we're like, what was that? We have no idea. It wasn't gin. What was that? And we kind of looked it up and did some research and found it's this thing called Genever. And since then, it's been kind of our passion product that would,
What's it made from?
So the history of it is before they were, so gin is made usually by making like a neutral grain spirit like vodka and soaking it in botanicals, herbs, spices, all sorts of things. Before distilling technology had kind of advanced to the point where we were able to make something as pure as vodka. Everything was kind of whiskey based, right? Everything was very flavor forward. We weren't able to pull all of those flavors out from the fermentation. Everything was what it tasted like going into the still. So at the time, medicine and alcohol were also very closely tied. What a time to be alive.
Still are.
Still
Yeah,
are.
that's right.
And so it was basically a whiskey that had botanicals soaked into it. So we kind of describe it as a malt whiskey gin hybrid. It doesn't have to have the juniper content of gin, just has to have juniper involved. But it's usually a lot of like, root herbs and baking, or not baking spices, but some of the coriander and caraway and some of those kinds of flavors in it.
So have you already chosen the botanicals that you're going to use?
Oh, what an interesting segue.
That is an interesting segue. Derek, do you want to describe that process?
I mean, it's their idea, and it's a great idea, but I'm very happy to be helping facilitate it. We kind of started looking at it, and I guess kind of along the lines of, we were always hoping to be a very collaborative place. I think we would agree with that as far as our community goes, and the bartending community especially goes, and using that as both a business principle as well as just something from the heart, something we want to do and be a part of and not be on an island. And like with the Stay Home Cocktail Club, and then leading into this, we thought we would involve the community in it. So what we're doing is a contest, but it's more of a collaboration with a large handful of a lot of the other best bartenders as far as we're concerned in Columbus to pick the botanical mix that goes into it. So we've gotten a huge collection recently, and they're allowed to pick whatever else they want. We've got a whole group of them. We've got Tommy Householder and Christina Basham and Jesse Hubbard and Sean Taylor. Who else? Like
PJ Ford, Nate
Howe from Rye River Social.
Nice.
And a couple others that I think are still going to do it as well, and they're going to pick it. And then when that's all said and done, the way the bottle is now, if you look at the back of your rum bottle, well, we're not sure exactly where, right? There's an image of like an old storefront as Echo Distilling on it, and everyone who's involved is going to have their name on it. So every bottle that'll be out on the market will have all the bartenders right on it.
Well, if you need a taster,
we will.
Let me know.
Absolutely. You could make a botanical mix. You could try it.
I could go
put
for
your
it.
name on it.
I could.
But
And I have a terrible palate, but I would be happy to taste the final product. Let you know my thoughts.
That's going on right now, actually.
We're in the midst of that. We should be starting to get back some of our.
They're working on it, so
should
won't be long.
Getting some of those entries back.
Sweet.
In the next week or two, I bet.
I think so.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And so you involved the community in another way. I read. People can come in. I don't know if this is still true, but I read that people can come into your distillery on Monday evenings and help you bottle and label. Is that still a thing?
That is something we haven't actually done it yet.
Okay.
But yes, you can sign up if you go on our website. There's a link to bottling, and you can sign up. And at some point in the future, probably once we're past the pandemic, just for kind of safety reasons, we'll start pulling people in to help us bottle batches on probably Monday evenings.
That's a great idea.
It's just a way to get people in there and see what we're doing and talk. And it's that community engagement. At least one of us will be there coordinating it, doing it with you. It's a way to talk directly with 4, 5, 6 people who are enthused about us. So
fun. Yeah. You guys are really smart. This is all good ideas.
Oh shucks.
So your newest product, or your most recent product, I guess I should say, by the time this podcast airs, you will be 1 week into your release of your rye whiskey.
Right on.
So tell me about your rye whiskey.
So our rye whiskey, so if you know anything about whiskey, a lot of brands start out with a whiskey or a barrel-aged something, and you wonder what happened to the time there, right? How does such a young company, we turned our stills on, I think, October 2nd of last year. How do we have a 2-year aged rye whiskey?
That was my first question.
That's a very valid question. So there's kind of two methods that distilleries usually go about. Both have their own merits, and I think the key is transparency in what you're doing. Some distilleries go source it. They go to MGP or another local distillery or someone who's got a warehouse of aged stock product, and they go taste it, pick what they like, take that and bottle it as their own, right? And the trap people get into there is when they're not being clear that that's how it came about, because people get upset if they think they're buying one thing or supporting one local company or one process, and that's not what the case is.
Can I just say, I don't give a shit where it comes from.
If it's good.
As long as it's good.
I do not care.
I think that's,
I
and I
don't know
think
why
a lot of
people
people are
get-
coming around to that.
Yeah. Who gives
I
a
agree.
shit? I mean, you're going to the trouble of tasting and bottling and labeling, and it's your
And
I don't
selecting
care.
it
You're
and
making
blending
parts
it,
of
and
it.
absolutely, there's
More power to you.
there's
Not all.
still a craft side on that. end of it,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in our case, what we wanted to do was we decided this was a little over 2 years ago, I guess. It's probably February of 2018. We decided we'd been looking for a location for the distillery for over a year at that point. We said, well, this has no end in sight. There's the real estate boom going on. We can't find a spot. Let's get something into barrels while we're waiting so that it can age while we're figuring this out, and maybe it'll be ready much quicker after we're open than it otherwise would be. So we went to Ryan Lang at Middle West Spirits, and we just said, hey, we need to put something aside. And he said, go pick out the things that you like, kind of rate them, figure out what you want, bring it back to me. We'll reverse engineer it and figure out what's in it and go from there.
He's so brilliant.
We love
He's-
Ryan.
He is
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
incredible.
Right.
His ability to recall mash bills and things just by hearing the name of the spirit kind of blew us away. We thought we were going to have to tell him, oh, it's this and this, and he just knew what it was.
Yeah.
So we kind of did that. We invited a bunch of friends over, had a rye whiskey tasting party, bought I think everything that you can buy in Ohio,
where were
set
we?
it out.
I don't know. We weren't invited to that either.
Right? Next time you will be. We know you now. And we just kind of rated everything, picked what we liked, took him the name. So it's a 95% rye, 5% corn. Pretty traditional rye whiskey. Nothing too crazy there.
So corn, not barley.
Corn, not barley. Right.
Okay.
Yes. Corn kind of gives it a little bit of that roundness compared to where barley might. Although obviously
good.
5%, that's not the main component or main
Right,
flavor
right.
profile. So yeah, pretty traditional rye whiskey. Sat aging in their warehouses over at Middle West for a little over 2 years, and brought the barrels over into our warehouse. And on July, I think 13th, 14th, we were able to. It was 2 years old, and we were able to dump the barrels and get it going.
Wow, that's so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It is. It's good too.
Can't
So-
wait to
I
try
didn't make it. I
that
can say
out.
it. I can brag on it.
So our podcast obviously is called If This Bar Could Talk. Your bar, sadly,
silent.
has not been able to open. I feel like,
It's been murmuring. It's just not talking yet.
yeah, I feel like, like everybody knows where they were at 9/11. You guys are too young, but like you remember where you were when Mount St. Helens are up. It's things like that. I feel like this is going to be one of those things. I remember where I was when COVID.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
Nikhil, what do you remember about the day when you learned that?
Well, I mean, I wasn't
I don't
with
know this
Derek.
story.
I mean, I would say I wasn't with Derek,
Right.
but like it was that same evening. I knew Derek was doing something down there, so we were, I was just thinking about it. I'm like, wait, this is all gonna happen. We're gonna close all this down and just I mean, I think Derek might have texted us like that, like right away that night or something.
I hadn't, because I won't lie, it's impactful and retro. What he's referencing is we were doing a final cocktail rollout that we were talking about earlier. When we thought we were about 3 weeks from opening. This was on March 15th. It just happened to be. And I had 2 cocktails of our 12 or so planned cocktails for the opening menu that were just a little more challenging and involved. And I hadn't been collaborating with anyone. I'd just been in there working on my own. And I thought it'd be fun to have 5 or 6 of my bartender friends come in and kind of help me work through them, and also just have a cool night and fine tune everything and get it ready. And our friend James DeFrance was one of those bartenders there that night from the refectory. And he looked up from his phone just about an hour into it and said, they just announced that everything has to be closed at 9 o'clock tonight. And a lot of people there seemed to have known that was maybe coming. And I just didn't. I was completely with blinders for everything we were doing for Echo and for the bar. That it was all I was thinking of. And honestly, when he told it to me, I still didn't absorb it. For like 5 minutes of me just kind of seeing the looks on their face and realizing it was something. And then I was like, well, anyway, back to these cocktails. I just wanted to work on that and have that kind of moment. And it took me a full week to realize that this was something more substantial and it was going to stick. And I know I hadn't texted because you guys texted me, and I didn't see it until we got done, and just said, hey, wanted to let you know that, we'll keep this in order and you're good and you're protected. And that was first extremely touching, and one of the many, many, many lucky things that have encountered me with pandemic and this job and what we're doing there. And we've been figuring it out since then.
So when was the bar supposed to open? When was your facility supposed to open?
At that point, we were kind of shooting for late March.
So late March,
early April.
So you have this shiny new distillery bar. You're ready to open. What were you
very expensive
thinking?
Equipment was in there,
Yeah,
ready to go.
Were you like, fuck?
A little bit. There was definitely kind of a couple days of hangover there. Even before it shut down, I remember on that Friday beforehand, kind of sitting down and like, we heard murmurings, kind of rumors or ideas starting to spread, and kind of sat down and just kind of planned out the next few months. What do they look like? What if we can't open? What if something happens? Not that we expected the shutdown that we did, right. But what if they're not issuing new licenses or that kind of thing? What if there's a problem? And kind of started to figure that out. But that was still kind of a shock to the system, to hear that official announcement on Sunday that that's what was going to happen. And then, there's a couple days of just system shock of like, what is going on here? I still spent
the rest of that week thinking, okay, we'll do this for this week.
This will blow over. It'll be 2 weeks.
I thought maybe that delay would happen. But
I remember that Monday, I was all excited because Greg Lehman from Watershed was stopping by. He'd never been in the place. I hadn't gotten to show it off to him yet. And we were just talking about a potential project we were going to work on. And I've never seen him, it was that Monday morning, I've never seen him look like that. He's always pretty upbeat, pretty happy, pretty Greg. He looked beaten. He looked, and you could tell it was because they had to lay off their whole bar and kitchen staff, and so that was kind of a little bit of a silver lining, is we weren't open. We didn't have to lay people off, so that we didn't have to make those hard decisions, and I'm really happy we didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, we had most of the staff. I had 75% of it picked and done, and we all knew it was going to go that way, but we hadn't done paperwork yet. So luckily, none of them had left prior jobs or put in notice that they had to then deal with. Very, 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 very fortunately.
Well, shit. I think we need a drink now.
Yeah.
So, Derek, you're going to make us a cocktail, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to make us?
We're going to make a classic just because the rye comes out tomorrow, and we couldn't be more excited. The cocktail the rye came out last week. The rye comes out August 5th.
We are celebrating that release now.
Yeah.
That's right. So we're going to do a Vieux Carré, which is Joe's favorite cocktail, and I think
that's one of mine
nice
too.
Highlight for our rye.
Awesome. So we're going to take a break, and you're going to mix us up a Vieux Carré with the delicious Echo Rye Whiskey.
That's correct.
Awesome.
And we are back with a Vieux Carré from Derek. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
There we go.
Oh, that's delicious.
Thank you.
So good.
All right, so you made
The creator of
this
this cocktail.
with the delicious rye.
Correct.
So why did you choose to do a Vicaray again?
I just wanted to do something that wouldn't hide the rye with it being released tomorrow and make it about that and not about some crazy creation. And it's always an easy one to pick with these guys because they have a couple cocktail standards and styles that they prefer the most, and this is Joe's favorite, so it seemed a fitting aspect of it to it.
How did he do, bosses?
It's delicious.
Tell me about the garnish. So, listeners, there is a tiny little cute paper clip, or no, a clothespin. What do you say? What the fuck is that?
Both work.
Clothespin, and it's holding a teardrop.
The extra cocktail bartender tool that we use.
Lemon.
Yeah, the express lemon, which I did separately, but that is one of the extruded images from Echo is our. I don't think we've officially named it, but I always call it the drip drop, just because it seems more fun.
How
that way.
did you?
So it's cut into that shape.
So is that a punch out? Like, how did you get that?
Joe and Nikhil had them already made in a bunch of sizes. Basically, like a little cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Just
nice.
trim it up.
Awesome.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Nice way to do good uniform garnishes.
Right. Pretty quick,
All right, so Derek, what is your vision for your bar? What kind of cocktails are you gonna have?
They're deeply fussed with and fussy and thought out and involved prior to anything that the guest and the people coming to visit us will encounter, because I just kind of believe in that in general. I like exploring the cocktails as far as the flavors and techniques and ingredients as far as I can possibly push it to be. I'm not interested in making another of the same thing, so I'm always trying to find an original voice for better or worse, best I can. But once that's done, I want that to be fully trained. I'll have a staff that's very aware of what we're doing and what we have and knows the flavors and the techniques. And it's not pretentious then after that. We're going to have fun. It'll be a pre-fussed, fun, very communal. I think it'll probably be the most community-driven bar that I've ever worked at as far as being very, very much a part of its exact geography. We've got some fun out there stuff. We have a shareable cocktail called Tin Can Telephones that uses actual old recycled and sanitized tin cans like you would if you were a kid and as old as me to remember, between two strings, and it's going to be a cocktail for two to share. So you'll get that with the actual string connected to it, which is probably odd to describe.
6 foot string.
But it's pretty fun to enjoy once you have it. And I've accidentally
cute.
been reminded that it will probably be a pretty good flirting cocktail if you want to come to our club of a bar that we're going to have where everyone's going to be flirting with each other.
A little.
We won't do that, but we're going to have food truck collaborations, much like Four String Brewing, which is in the prior tenant of the building that we're in had. So we'll be able to have a rotating selection of those kind of things and not stress ourselves with the day-to-days of the kitchen and let that be that's aspect, and then doing our sort of thing.
I was going to ask you about food. So you're doing food trucks. We love food trucks.
Regular rotation of food trucks just to save on. We don't have space for a kitchen.
Makes
So
sense.
let's let the people who do. I mean, that's kind of our whole philosophy on between the Geneva collaboration and everything is let the people who know what they're doing for a specific thing do that thing.
Yeah, support the community. I love that about you guys.
Yeah, I'm totally with it. Besides increased check averages, as far as being the kind of cocktail bartender I like not having that distraction for once. With
Yeah.
cocktails.
So Blair, the Vicaray is one of your favorites.
It is.
How did he do?
Did great.
Pressure.
Very, very. No, it truly is one of my top 10. I hate to put like a top 5 or a very favorite because it kind of depends on my mood.
That's right. Right.
But Vicaray is always in my top 10 list. It's such a great cocktail.
Have you tried the
It has
rum
worked its way
Vicaray?
into it.
I don't.
Rum
The
I have
Vicaray.
not tried a rum Vicaray.
So
Actually, it's really good.
it turned
I
out
thought
it's
the same
really
thing.
good.
Joe's got me turned on to it.
I don't know how we stumbled on it, but then it kind of made sense when we're making both a rye and a rum. But you just replace the cognac with rum
Okay.
instead. So
You
you've
kind of,
got,
I guess, it probably
so
stumbled
you got
And
vermouth, rye,
Aged rum, preferably, or does it
preferably,
matter?
yeah. But we've made it plenty of times with our
Okay.
own. And
Ours has enough backbone, and that's probably how it was, because the last part about the way the bar is going to be set up, most of what has been planned was with the assumption that we only would have our rum available. So there was a higher propensity of that on the menu, probably 4, I believe, 4, maybe 5 of the cocktails, which almost was kind of a lot for that. So it's an advantage now that we're going to have the rye available as well.
Rye
so we'll have
and
2 spirits and
potentially the Geneva.
yeah, and potentially the third one. So that will alter it.
So
a
Derek
bit.
was
So
talking
it'll
about pre-fussing
highlight
over
us,
the
but-
menu. He's going to have to re-fuss over the menu. I
So
think
the-
good to me.
to
It won't be
fix it up a bit.
only like you can only get our kind of things, like it's just a glorified tasting room, but we'll focus on that. We'll
We're
highlight
trying to
it.
use as many
more,
local products as possible.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not one of those tasting rooms where you can only go in and get Echo Spirits cocktails. It's meant to be
Yeah, it
about
would be-
showing the whole community off.
But people are gonna want your
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love your sense of community, and I love that you're doing something so unique. That is so good. This is what I love about Columbus. You know, we're just innovative, like you said, like you say on your website. We're creative and innovative, and community focus is just a really, really good thing, and a good business model, by the way.
Yeah, I think Grandview will like it. I think we'll have something that Grandview hasn't had any time that I can think of, really.
So during the pandemic, you pivoted to making sanitizer. Why did you do that, and how has that worked out for you?
I would
Go
say
for
so. We were kind of just talking about that. You know, when you were saying where we were when we started hearing about the COVID stuff, it was maybe a week after that is when we full pivoted into the sanitizer, because we're not going to be able to open up the bar. People might come in for rum, but it's not going to be as good as it would have been if there wasn't everything closed down. So we're like, what else can we do? And we looked around. Other distilleries out like in Oregon at that point was the only one, I think, at that point that was doing hand sanitizer, because it's basically the same base. You make a high proof alcohol, and you add some chemicals to it to make it better for your skin and stuff. And it's like we can pivot into this. We can turn all products that we have. We can work with other local, breweries and other stuff that have products that's going to go bad. We can turn stuff into hand sanitizer that would be relatively easy to do and already had on hand, basically.
There's also kind of a scary side, or scary time on our side, rather. Nikhil mentioned the distillery out in Oregon that was making it, but at the time, the rules on it were kind of unclear. Technically, you're supposed to be an FDA-regulated facility to make hand sanitizer, and at the time, those distilleries who were doing that were, more or less breaking the law on turning it into sanitizer. So it was kind of a weird, unclear regulatory environment. And eventually the TTB and the FDA did come out with guidance on what we are and are not allowed to do. But we were doing it before that. We kind of looked around and we said we have to. Both from a pure business financial kind of standpoint, is here's a way to get some money coming in right now that we know that our bar's not opening anytime soon. But also just to get, do something for the community. Everybody's looking for this stuff. Let's make something here.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed your choice of packaging as well.
The honey bears.
Honey bears.
Yeah,
Smile.
so
That
cute.
was- and a lot, we love it, and I'd love to take creative, credit for it. But it's also one of those things, that's all that was available. You called up any of the packaging companies and you said, hey, I need, X size and I need however many cases of it. And they said, okay, well, we can get you some in August.
Oh, wow.
I said, well, all right, what
What can I
start
get
browsing
now?
their website. What do you have now? And started trying to get creative about, what are things nobody's looking for? Everybody's looking for pump bottles and standard cylinders and that kind of, let's go find a ketchup bottle, or let's go find it. And we stumbled on the honey bears and we said, sure, we have to.
That's so funny. That's
I
a
think
great
it's great.
story.
Right.
All right. So you have 3 restaurants that are featuring your cocktail. Are the cocktails your creation, Derek?
No, they're the bartenders at those places.
Okay,
created
so
those themselves, yeah.
they're just
Not only do they
utilizing
join us-
Echo.
Mhm,
Okay.
Yep.
What are the 3? So it's Sidebar.
Sidebar, which was really nice of Alex to step in for us. We were trying to find a third one, and it's not as easy as it sounds right now at all.
I bet.
Yeah.
It's the extra work, even if you're a place that's open, and to be willing to do that.
Nobody's sure whether they can commit to it and whether they're going to be open the
Yeah,
next week.
yeah.
We're
We-
trying to arrange this several weeks ago, and gamble that those places are going to be open, and they're gambling on it too, you know,
Right.
to put forth the effort on it for us.
Yeah, we got one. Joe and Nikhil put design into it and printed menus, and it's not just a cast off kind of thing. So yeah, sidebar, and then PJ Ford, who has been great to us all along throughout all of this, from Matchsticks and both Natalie's, is going to feature 3 of their cocktails at Natalie's Music Hall in Grandview, where King Avenue 5 used to be, and Rye River Social. That Nate is heading up, Nate Howe, down the street from us, almost parallel crossed, where it's kind of a little strip mall, Romeo's Pizza and a title boxing.
It's the old Bar 145.
Bar 145
Yeah, the
used to be
former
there.
Bar 145
Yep.
used to
Also
be
a
definite
new,
improvement.
brand new place
Also a
that
new place.
opened.
It's beautiful,
Didn't they
yeah.
open during the virus?
They were doing their yes.
They have the most dramatic closing story.
They probably we like to say our
We
story
thought
of being a few weeks away from opening was kind of
won.
dramatic, but they were doing their final soft opening that Sunday night where everything got announced to be shutting down. So they're in the middle of service on their soft opening and realized what was going to happen. Yeah.
That is just
Yeah, they
so
said the
crazy.
owners and managers were up in the office, like seeing it on TV as they're about to figure out just closing up the checks and finishing up the night and opening up the next day.
I cannot imagine what you guys felt. I know, we do the Columbus Craft Cocktail Tour, we do the Women in Whiskey, and we had to cancel all that, but we have day jobs, so we're fine. I could not sleep. That was the only night in my life, I think, that I didn't sleep. I literally was up all night long worrying about what was going to happen to the bartenders in town. And I'm a professional sleeper. I'm really good at it.
I
prevent
I was so scared
help.
for
I
everyone.
felt very, very, very guilty the first couple months of it, and still do sometimes. Yeah,
Well, you shouldn't.
trying not to.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling fortunate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
had
to
you
deal
have
with a lot of stuff.
You guys are great. You're wonderful. It's just a wonderful thing that you're doing. So, are you open for tours now? What's?
Yes, that was one thing we did decide to do during the pandemic. Not right at the beginning, just in the last, I think, month, beginning of July, was we saw some of the other distilleries start to open up for kind of, small guest count tours, distancing and doing everything where they could. So we kind of took advantage of that and decided, let's do the same thing. We did a Kickstarter last summer. We had a lot of people out there with free tour passes that they've been sitting on for almost a year. And we said, we need, let's start to get these people in the door and, for better or worse, practice our tour a little bit, so that when we get back to the point where we can have 10 or 12 or 15 or however many people on, it's a little more polished, better product for people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Wonderful. So how much are tours? How much do they cost?
I think they're is that right?
$10 to $20.
Right. They are 10. I believe they're $10.
And sometimes free.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what.
$10 Wednesday nights, 6 p.m.
Normal.
You can sign up on our website.
Awesome. And so do you have a projected opening, or how?
We're shooting for this fall. So in the midst of all this, we discovered some kind of zoning and building related issues that we're in the process of working through. Everything's on track, and we're kind of shooting for this fall. Don't quote me on it, but maybe October is kind of our goal. We'll see if we. Right now, everything's on track for that, but we've said that about 4 times now, so
Wow.
it's hard.
An abundance of caution.
Yes.
Well, we wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
We can't wait to come to your facility. We cannot wait to bring our cocktail tour to you.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, you'll agree to be.
Of
During
course.
you're ever around
Participating
in,
in
the area,
that.
and the lights are on in the evening, or if it's 12 to 6 most every day, stop and see us. We're still there doing something all the time.
Blair, do you have any other questions?
I do have one. Can we try the rye together?
Absolutely.
100%.
All right, so
Yay.
let's pause for 1 minute while I pour some rye.
All right, so your rye whiskey, 2 years old.
And 95 rye and 5 corn.
Mm-hmm. It's 93
3.6.
proof.
93 proof.
93
Okay.
Huh. It doesn't.
Cheers.
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 We get the sneak preview. Woohoo!
Well, not really, because when this airs, it will already be out for 1
Yeah,
week.
but we're drinking it first.
It's pretty yeah, this is exclusive.
So So again, yeah, pretty traditional rye.
Yes.
Nothing crazy going on. We just hope to make a really good example of that. And yeah, specifically designed a lot for, for making cocktails out of it.
Yeah.
So my initial thoughts are way better than I expected for a 2-year-old.
Okay.
Okay. What else?
Good.
Do tell.
Smoother than I expected for 93.
That's been across the board, which is true.
Great woodiness, like in a good toasty wood way.
Mm-hmm. I feel like
And the rye is so prominent. It's wonderful.
There, yeah.
So for me, it's a typical rye, and I love it in a cocktail. Like the Zucchini is wonderful, but it's just not something I want to sip
Right.
on its own.
Absolutely.
But having had the Vucare, now you get where that's coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
it really lends itself like a Boulevardier, like
Oh my goodness! I have never had a Boulevardier with our rye yet.
I have not either.
that would be delicious.
Yeah, that would work well.
We've got a whole catalog to explore.
Ooh. Just got very
Yeah.
excited for that.
You're
Even
welcome.
like a
That's an
Manhattan would
all-time
be
favorite. That's
amazing.
a top 5.
Because the thing is, when you're using sweet vermouth, I don't like a overly sweet cocktail. So a rye is so perfect in a cocktail. It would be a great Manhattan.
What other ryes would you have said would be ones that you like a lot?
So to sip alone, the only one I really like for that is Middle West Spirits.
Oh, that's right. I know you said
But
that,
like
right.
I like
Well,
Sazerac.
and Angel's Envy, but does that really count as rye?
That's
Yeah.
different. To me, that's
No. I mean-
like a whole different category. Yeah,
just
that's a
candy.
different
Yeah.
category. That's not. Well, I don't know.
But I love Sazerac.
The Angel's
And
Envy is in rum casks, right?
Angel's
Yeah.
Envy, yeah.
Yeah.
and it's wonderful. It's delicious.
It-
But to me,
like
it's
its
not
own
really
thing.
rum.
It's like
It's not
It
a,
is.
a traditional
Just-
rye.
It is not a
Right.
traditional
It's a rye.
Right. Sorry, I said.
I had a guest
Rye.
order a
Yes.
Sazerac with it one time. It was like a $26
That would be weird.
Sazerac, and it was from the floor, and the ticket came in, and I was like, "Are you sure that person? That's not really going to lend itself to that cocktail at all." And she's like, "No, that's definitely what he wanted." And I was like, "Well, that's often the case with Angel's Envy, the orders we get." But sure enough, like 3 or 4 minutes later, she came back and she goes, "This guy said this is wrong. It has vanilla or like honey syrup or something." And I was like,
Right.
"No, that's what's in that."
Yeah, you love it. It's delicious.
magical
But then
inside,
when you
yeah.
put it in a cocktail like that, it just
Right.
doesn't.
Yeah.
When you
It's
treat
just
it
too
as an
much.
ingredient and pair it in certain cocktails, it works or doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Agreed.
I think
this
the
is
other
still-
one that for me is way up there is the Old Forester 100
Yeah.
rye. That's one of my favorite
We've
ryes.
had that as
Yep.
one in house as a stand-in prior to ours getting in, just as for experimenting and such. And I haven't went back to it for a while. You
Yeah.
have the Michter's over there, which that is one that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Right.
So where can people get the rye? Where can they purchase it?
So right now, the rye whiskey is only going to be in our distillery. Before we kind of commit to getting it out into the stores, just because we've got a little lower volume of it, want to make sure we had enough for all the people who did the reservations online and who want to come into the shop. I think we are going to have enough, and we'll get out into some of the liquor stores. But for right now, it'll be distillery only, as well as at the 3 restaurants. We've got the cocktails this week.
Well, I would say it's worth it to just go to the distillery and buy it, because then you can get a
we're fun.
gander of what's to come.
And meet you guys.
Do a tour.
Meet us, get to know your distiller.
Yeah.
Show you
right.
around.
Get
Yeah.
out there, and we'll show
Be
you.
an impromptu
give
tour.
you a tour.
Awesome.
Nikhil did impromptu tours last weekend.
He just did.
It's what happens.
And if you were
We'll show you
any of those
around.
4
Wonderful.
people that
We're
were on
always
that
there.
tour, come back and see us again soon.
Awesome. So Joe, Nikhil, Derek, thank you
you.
so much for doing our podcast. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All the
guys for
best.
having us. We appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Listeners, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Seabus Craft Cocktail Tour. Visit our website at columbuscraftcocktailtour.com for cocktail tour dates, women in whiskey tastings, special events, merchandise, and if you're looking for a gift for that special person in your life, get them a gift card to our cocktail tour. Thank you to our producer, Greg Hansberry, and to the biographer for our original music. And please remember to drink responsibly and be cocktail curious. Cheers.